Bike lanes are great if they're designed and used correctly. They provide safe avenues of travel for ever-increasing numbers of cyclists. And there are a lot of them. With more and more riders on the road, it has brought to light that while bike lanes are substantially safer for bikers than sharing a road with vehicles, they still aren't perfect. And one flaw in particular can often be fatal. Have you ever biked on a road with no bike lane? Like this one? Or this? It can be intimidating and extremely dangerous, even if you are taking all of the appropriate safety precautions. Cars, trucks, and buses zip by at furious speeds, sometimes coming within feet of cyclists along the road. That's why bike lanes are a critical safety measure for any street. A 2012 study published in the American Journal of Public Health found that bike lanes cut injury risk by 50%, and dedicated or protected bike lanes cut injury risk by 90%. These lanes help protect riders and save lives, and they are more important than ever as global cycling numbers continue to increase. City planners have 4 options when it comes to bike lane design. Mixed traffic bike lanes, or sharrows, are regular streets on which bikes are permitted to mix with cars. They are marked with a painted image of a bicycle, indicating where people should preferably cycle. Even without the markings, almost every street qualifies under this category. Unprotected bike lanes are a bit better. Here, lines separate a portion of the street designated for bicycle use only.
In some limited instances, those work okay, but the problem there is that there's not real physical separation, and a lot of times people driving either don't understand or don't heed those bikeways, and they don't feel safe for people biking.
Next, we have protected bikeways. These are segments of roads that are exclusively for bikes and are physically separated from flowing traffic. The most common form is an on-street bike lane placed between the curb and a row of parked cars.
Those are really what's needed, especially on busier roads and a lot of the streets that you see in cities.
Finally, we have bike paths that are separated completely from the street and used specifically for riding. New York's Hudson River Greenway and Central Park Loop fall under this category.
In most cities, those are hard to come by, but you'll find them in parks and sometimes along old railway beds or even along active rail lines. Sometimes you'll have those types of paths.
But even our most thought-out bike lanes can still bring unavoidable dangers. One of the most common is called dooring. This occurs when a rider is traveling in a bike lane and a parked vehicle opens its door without checking for incoming cyclists. If you know someone who's an occasional rider, chances are something like this has happened to them or someone they know. Another issue is vehicle operators driving too closely to cyclists. Unprotected bike lanes often give drivers the illusion of more space between themselves and the cyclist. But one of the main problems, and the most challenging for planners, is the infamous right hook crash. Cyclists in bike lanes approaching intersections have the right of way to proceed through the light if green. But things can get murky at the intersection. As a cyclist travels down a street parallel with flowing traffic, drivers making right-hand turns often don't see cyclists approaching. The resulting collision can be disastrous.
Especially, it happens a lot with large trucks and bigger vehicles because there's blind spots and they have a different sort of turning radius. So here in New Orleans, we've certainly seen a handful of really tragic occasions where people were killed while biking because of the right hook.
It's not just right-hand turns that cyclists need to be worried about. This can happen in left-hand turns too, especially on one-way streets. Determining who's liable can be a tricky ordeal. But here are some ground rules. Every person riding a bicycle upon a sidewalk or crosswalk must be granted all of the rights and is subject to all of the duties applicable to a pedestrian. If the biker is in a bike lane, who's at fault depends basically on who's in front. So if the cyclist is riding next to or in front of the car, cars should allow the bicyclist to proceed through an intersection. If the driver pulls ahead and begins to turn, initiating the collision, the driver is at fault. Tragically, right hook crashes occur often and can be deadly. In November 2017, Jonathan Chase Adams was riding his bike to work in Bend, Oregon. He approached a downhill stretch and cruised past vehicles backed up in traffic. As he approached the intersection at Olney Avenue, the signal turned green, and he continued through. But he never made it to the other side. When the light turned green, the driver of a FedEx semi-truck who had been waiting at the light initiated a right turn, cutting off Adams' path. Witnesses testified in court that Adams bounced off the side of the truck several times before falling to the ground. Adams was pronounced dead at the scene. A similar incident occurred in Manhattan in June of 2021. 71-year-old Jeff Williamson was riding his bike near Central Park when he collided with a postal service truck making a right turn. He was rushed to a hospital, but couldn't be saved. So what are some of the ways to solve this problem?
But there are design features that can really help with this as well. When you look at protected bike lanes, if the car driving has to make a sharper turn, that means that they'll move slower. And also it separates, the person biking, there's a little more space. So the car's starting to make its turn and they can see the person biking rather than sort of turn into them and sideswipe them.
This separation, along with the reduced speed of drivers turning, will allow for a clearer line of sight for incoming cyclists and lower the rate of crashes at intersections. Redesigning intersections altogether is another solution that's growing in popularity. This concept connects unprotected bike lanes by extending the lane to curve around the corners of intersections. These extensions have the same radius of the existing corner, allowing cars to turn without entering the parallel bike lane. To further increase safety, protective barriers can be added. To make things clearer for all users, paths and crossing areas can be marked to further distinguish them, increasing the safety of all riders. Another potential solution is left-side bike lanes. As their name suggests, these are bike lanes that flow with traffic but are located on the left side of one-way streets, or in the median of two-way divided streets. Their benefits include better cyclist visibility by motorists, minimizing dooring conflicts next to parking, and reducing bus and truck conflicts as most bus stops and loading zones are on the right side of the street.
In a perfect world, the city is actually an invitation for people to go out and feel that the streets are theirs. It just simply means that our neighborhood can come together and the streets can be an invitation to do that. This isn't working for anybody. It's not working for drivers. It's not working for people who live in their neighborhoods. So we need a better solution, and that solution is simple. It's just to prioritize people on our streets instead of cars.
What are your thoughts on the dangers of cycling through cities? Do you feel safe out there? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to practice caution while going out for a ride. We'll see you next time.